Welcome back, friends, to Growing Smart, the Stronghold podcast. I want to start today's podcast by telling you how much I appreciate you listening. The statistics I get back tell me that people are listening to more than one podcast, and that's comforting. I've probably done a few of these in the past that after listening to one, you might not listen to another one. So I'm grateful for the fact that you're listening to more than one. I imagine you are looking at titles and picking and choosing from the different podcasts to see which topics you like. The statistics also tell me that, and a few of you listen to them all, or at least download them all, and I appreciate that. The reason I appreciate it isn't because I just want to know that, you like me, but because I really am desperate to help each and every one of you, and I pay attention to those statistics to see what topics people are responding to, and it lets me know that's something I can help out more with. It's difficult to cram everything in to a podcast, especially a podcast like this one. The whole design around Growing Smart is to give you something you can implement, meaning I want you to listen to the podcast, get a little bit of information, and then get some real steps, almost like a how-to guide, to go back and immediately implement what you took from this podcast so that you start to look at this as a resource library. You start to think of Growing Smart as a database you can go to get instructions to solve issues that happen in the business place every day. That's the goal. It's not for me to just pontificate on things or to be talking about philosophy all day long, although certainly we've had those episodes too. Today it might be a little bit more that way. What I'd like to talk about today are 3 mistakes, and we may only get through 1 or 2 of them, but I want to talk about 3 mistakes I personally have made in business that I've learned from the most. It's not that I want to make this all about me, but I imagine in talking through some of these things, you're going to find it's something you can relate to. The reason why I'm making myself the center of this is it's easy for me to talk about 3 mistakes my clients have made. A lot of times my podcasts are based on struggles my clients are going through. But I really want to talk more intimately about ones I've made so that from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, you might hear a little bit more of the heart about making a mistake as a business person and not just the practical what you do to fix it. We're going to talk about those things too. But I'm going to talk about 3 mistakes. The title today is 3 mistakes entrepreneurs make, or really 3 mistakes I've made as an entrepreneur, small business person, that you don't have to make to succeed. So I really want to walk you through it from beyond just the business book, the business training on what to do, and really get a little bit deeper into it so you can understand it at a really even a heart level. So that's today's Growing Smart. Here we go. So the first mistake that I've made as an entrepreneur, and I'm going to try not to justify this one, but mistake number 1 is not having the right kind of strategic business plan. Now, again, I said I don't want to justify this one. The reason I said that is because I actually never intended to start my own company. I kind of fell into it. I had been in another consulting company for a while, doing very well at that, enjoying that, left that to go to run a company for a client. That was not the right move. And at that point, realizing very quickly that was not the right move, I had to do an about face and come back to what I love, which is coaching, training, and consulting. And the challenge was I couldn't go back to the company I had left. So I had to start my own company. I already knew something of the business model. I knew how to do what I was doing. So I basically jumped right in as a freelance consultant and had work right away. So I was very fortunate in that. But my intention was not to start a company. I did not have a year of planning and things like that. And so that's the justification. The fact of the matter is that even at that point, when I began making a business plan, I didn't really sit down and do an appropriate strategic business plan. If you were to go and Google strategic business plan, you'll get some really good documents, but pretty much those things are designed to help you get a loan from a bank. They're very, very helpful. And I suggest you use those tools. There's a lot of free ones out there that are perfectly fine. Where I did not apply my logic enough was on the marketing side, coming up with a strategic enough business plan to grow my business systematically and predictably. I've spent a lot of time over the past, especially the past year, coaching entrepreneurs on how to have a predictable business plan because most of us don't have one. We might have a budget, we might have some to-dos, but we don't necessarily put the predictable side in the marketing. We just kind of do stuff, a lot of random stuff, and it's not the best way to do it. One of the industries I've coached that suffers from this the most is real estate, because they don't require any predictable business plan to get started. They don't need a loan from the bank, and brokers don't require it of realtors to join the agency. So I just made an online training which walks them through how to do this. If you go to strongholdtraining.com/real estate, or just go to our website, I've got an online training there to help realtors specifically with this, because they kind of suffer from the same thing that a lot of other entrepreneurs do. Just kind of jump into it. Hey, real estate looks interesting. I'm going to do that. I think I can do that. I know some homes I can sell. I'm just kind of freelance real estate agent, get your license and off you go. And next thing you know, you're buying lead generation tool after lead generation tool. You're buying CRMs. You're just kind of all over the place. And you don't really have a predictable success plan. You might put a budget on paper, but it isn't really something that if you were your own sales manager, wouldn't be enough. So I made that mistake. And I made that mistake big time. What I did when I first started my business was I reached out to everyone I knew, offered my services, and a bunch of them took me up on it, and I just started working. I just started making money. I was just hustling to see if this thing would work. And I was successful at it. And as I did it, I started coming up with ideas. Oh, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to scale this way. I think I'm going to try this other hot idea. I was like, well, I won't do public training. I'll just do coaching. Oh, I won't do coaching. I'll just do keynote speaking. Okay, so I'll do public training, but I'm just going to do workshops. Idea after idea, and then quickly reacting my marketing all around that, quickly reacting my plans all around that. And what I didn't do is say, okay, this is my goal. This is how I'm going to get there. And then more importantly, this is exactly how I'm going to market myself to getting there. And then tweaking that as I went and making little improvements and becoming a master of my predictable marketing plan or my predictable sales plan. I became more and more of a master of my craft as a consultant. That was inevitable just from doing it. But I didn't really master the marketing of what I did. I would just try random new things, and it wasn't according to a plan that I was tweaking and doing as I went along. And this is not unusual for entrepreneurs. We focus on the art and not so much the science, especially when it comes to growing our business. I didn't realize that's what was going on at the time. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, I thought I had a plan. I didn't realize that, hey, if I don't go back at the end of the day and sit down and look at a spreadsheet and have things on my calendar that I'm accountable to, that I'm regularly doing and tweaking and sticking with it for a long period of time, even when it's not working, seeing it through to get what I can out of it and having that kind of systematic approach. Until I started doing that, I didn't even realize I wasn't as predictable as I thought. But the proof is in the pudding, and not getting myself there. And there's never too late of a time to start that. You can have a very predictable plan by setting goals, creating a very measurable strategy, and then tweaking and applying that strategy every single day. put it in an illustration of working out, I think a lot of people can respond or understand it this way. You see those guys at the gym walking around with the clipboard, or the guys walking around with like a binder, and they're recording their reps, they're recording their weight. Entrepreneurs need that. Now, once you've been doing that for a year or two, maybe you can walk away from it because you've just got it down. It's all in your head. But you really need that to get yourself to a predictable place, to understand how much weight that you need to add to the bar. And entrepreneurs really, really need that. That's why executive coaching helps so many people, because it forces them to do that. That's why personal trainers help so many people. It forces them to do that. And so I did not do that enough. I just had plans. I didn't have a tweakable, measurable, ongoing, consistent, predictable sales and marketing plan that I was sticking to. And make too many rapid changes. And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do. We're all over the place. That's how we become masters of so many things. But it doesn't help us scale. So that was the number one mistake. The second mistake I made, which is one I was doomed to make, and it's one that most entrepreneurs make because it comes from one of our greatest strengths. It kind of goes along with the first one, is I never stayed the course long enough because I constantly chased after every shiny new thing. Let me give you an example. When I first got into this, I found out really quick that I really enjoy marketing, and I started learning marketing and training people on marketing. And next thing you know, I'm gonna start doing marketing seminars all the time. I'm doing marketing webinars, and I chased that fancy thing, which was good in that I learned marketing. That's my strength as an entrepreneur. I can jump and learn something new real quick and implement it and apply it and teach others to do it. That's my gift. The bad news is I wasn't following a long-term consistent plan. I've come up with a rule for this. I call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of what we do as small business owners needs to stay the course. My mentor was big on that. He was always like, stay the course, stay the course. Don't get creative, stay the course. And I thought, well, my strength is getting creative. But what I've taken that now is I've taken his advice and kind of merged it with my strength of being creative, and realized about 80%, and you could say 70 to 80% of what we do as entrepreneurs needs to be staying the course, tracking and tweaking and mastering the plans we have. And then you can leave another 20 to 30% for getting creative and trying new things. But then it's in a controlled environment. I like to think of it this way. If you go into a lab, you're not gonna do lab work out in a field somewhere with a bunch of just random tools you grabbed real quick from the shed. No, you're gonna do it in a controlled environment. You're gonna have set some theories out first. And think about the scientific method. If you're gonna try something new and you're a scientist, you're gonna come up with a theory. You're gonna do some research. You're gonna grab your tools. You're gonna make some goals. And you're gonna experiment in a controlled environment. What we tend to do as entrepreneurs is just jump right in. Again, it's a strength, and we want to be able to leverage our strength of getting creative and trying new things, but we want to control the environment enough. Meanwhile, 70 to 80% of the time, staying the course on the main thing we've already committed to, so that our entire business does not become experimental. I'm blown away at the number of startups in this country and how much money is filtered into them. It's a business of its own, just in the startup and venture capital world. And a lot of it's because they're just using business as an experiment. Those businesses are just proof of concept experiments. And while there's value in that, ask yourself this one question. Did you start your business to be a proof of concept experiment? Or do you believe you have a proof of concept and you have a real business? Well, if you believe it's not a proof of concept experiment, then 70 to 80% of what you need to do is staying the course, what works, what you've planned to do, tweaking and measuring as you go, and then even your experimentation, trying new avenues of sales, trying new things you're going to sell, trying new marketing techniques, trying new ventures within your business needs to be in a controlled environment, which means setting goals, coming up with a plan, measuring it as you go, finishing the test, evaluating what you did, not herky-jerky all over the place. That doesn't work. A great example of this is Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A, you'll notice they don't come out with new menu items every single week like Wendy's and McDonald's does. They test and test and test and test their new menu items before they unleash them. And they have found this to be very, very effective, and it obviously is. Where McDonald's is like, hey, let's throw bacon on that thing we didn't do before. Now, while throwing bacon on anything is always an approved idea, they've come out with some really awful sandwiches, just a reaction. And they've also come up with some great ideas, but they'll use their menu as a proof of concept. What ends up happening is the consumer doesn't trust that everything on your menu is good. Where Chick-fil-A is committed to giving making sure every experience is a good one. So we really want to be careful of that. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Some of the things I do is Petri dish. I do test some of my marketing concepts on people, knowing they might not work. But the question is, are we intentional about that? Or are we scratching lottery tickets? And my advice to you is that you are very careful about this and you don't justify things that way, but instead you control the experiments, but most importantly, 70 to 80% of what you do is staying the course on the main thing. That is very important, and that's the second mistake I've made. I've not been great about that, especially early on, and it's cost me a lot of time and money. The third one I'll give you is, and it'll be brief, is a mistake that most of us make. And the age of flashy marketing and always seeing the horizon before looking at our feet, I have made this third mistake, and it's catastrophic. And that is this: focusing on leads over referrals. What I mean is, I have gotten so into finding new clients and new lead sources and getting new followers that I have not focused on just simply leveraging the people I already have. By focusing on my base and focusing on letting them introduce me to new people, so that my referral arm should be stronger than my lead generating arm. If you're in a business that is quality driven, or it's a service-based business, or you do any sort of consulting or marketing, or really any sort of service business, if you're not a commodity, if you're not selling screwdrivers or hammers or something like that, you really need to focus on your base as your greatest source of growing your business. Making sure that asking for and generating referrals and equipping people to be your referral partners really is the strongest way to grow your business slowly over time, yet predictably and over time exponentially. Better than anything else. Strategic partnerships, referral-based businesses are the way to grow most small businesses. And I know that. But I, like everyone else, get excited about flashy marketing. Hey, if I buy this lead generating tool, maybe I'll get 1,000 people to buy from me tomorrow. Is so often the temptation that I spend more time on that than, hey, let me call my clients every week and see how they're doing, see how I could better serve them and help them to better refer me. That is not a routine, consistent, predictable part of my process, or it wasn't in the past, and that has been very catastrophic. I think the number one takeaway you can have from that is, from day one, learn how to make referral selling and building strategic partnerships an absolute cornerstone to your small business growth plan. And be careful. Let that be more important than your lead gen. It's going to grow smaller over time, perhaps, than a quick lead gen boost. But honestly, it is so much more predictable and requires so much less effort, and it frees you up to serve more than to sell. So it's very, very helpful. So those are 3 mistakes I've made. I've seen so many other people make, and I have to continually remind myself not to make those. They're so easy to make. So easy to make. So I hope that's been helpful. I know it has been for me to be reminded of it again. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next Growing Smart